I also just think it's, New York's the center of the world if you're American, but I feel like London or Dubai is the center of the world for everyone else.
I'm not, I don't want you to piss on the city here, but like, if giving you the choice to operate out of London or operate out of New York, what are you choosing?
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.
All right, welcome back to the Business of Betting podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Edelstein, senior analyst at InGame. I am joined today by Daniel Zimmerman, the CEO of Verse Gaming. Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. How's it going?
Going pretty good. Couldn't help but notice your pup in the picture a little bit earlier. I've got one that looks very similar. I wish he was in here with me. He's a poodle mix and a.
Is it Golden Doodle?
No, it's not. Is that what you got? Is that the golden?
Yeah, mine's a mini Golden Doodle. So.
The mini golden doodle. Yeah, mine is the King Cavalier something, and everybody's got a doodle. It's doodle time. Too bad we couldn't have bet on that a couple years ago. I think we all would have cleaned up. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you guys are doing? Because it's interesting to me. You're a young fella. I'm old enough to be your not white trash father situation here. And already in the few years that Verse has been around, you've kind of made a few different pivots. So why don't you just explain like where you started and where you're landed right now?
Sure, and I appreciate the chance to join you on the podcast. So my name's Daniel Zimmerman. My background is really with social media marketing. That was what I worked on in college for Barstool Sports as a content creator. So that's where I got my first taste of sort of entrepreneurship. They basically gave me the license to use the Barstool logo in college to build up a brand. I really took that and realized from there I never really wanted to work in an office and get a day job. I wanted to start a new company. And I just think that driving focus carried me here and will continue to carry me because, when we started Verse 5 years ago, we actually started it with the intention of building a bet on anything app and paid a lot of money to a lot of lawyers to tell us how illegal that was. And so from that growth, prediction market wasn't really a term that we were familiar with, but we did use the word, prediction betting. And unfortunately, I don't have Peter Thiel on speed dial, so I was not able to get that running at the beginning, but we now are fortunate to be in a position where we are running that exact type of product today under the Verse brand. We went through a couple different models of DFS, real money gaming. We investigated skill gaming. We really went through a lot of different possibilities to try to get to this end goal. And I'm really excited that we finally are in this position to let you open the app and bet on anything.
Right. And so looking at the app now, I mean, you guys launched, I guess, a little over a month ago, the Parlay Anything idea, where to my eyes, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but to my eyes, it's basically pick'em meets prediction markets.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate description. I mean, I have great respect for what Prize Picks did as a sort of gamification layer on top of traditional sports betting. Obviously, DFS comes in a lot of forms and fashions. And we kind of see a similar model for what we're doing. We want to be able to bring that risk a little, win a lot feel to prediction markets, something they currently lack. And it's something that we see as the future of predictions is gamifying these markets to look and feel as close to betting as possible. And I think everyone has a pretty good opinion on how close they are already. We're trying to drive that conversation even further.
So just, for the listeners here, so I'm going to throw something out here. And again, you tell me that I'm right or wrong. It looks to me, based on, what I was looking at your site, I can take the Warriors to win against the Rockets, and I can take Trump to be indicted, and I can take the price of Bitcoin to be, 120,000, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I can parlay those three things together, and whatever happens, happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So anything we have on our site, you can parlay. Parlay Anything is the tagline because that's the product. You can combine whatever you want. You can do it all sports, cross category, politics, Oscars, Grammys, pretty much anything you'll see on Polymarket or Kalshi, you can parlay on Verse.
So a couple of things about this. Now, are you running this? Is this cash? Is it sweeps? How does it run?
Yeah, so we use a sweeps model where you're able to play with free currency for fun and engagement, or play with the promotional currency for cash prizes. So the answer is just like everything else, you put money in and you can play and you can win.
Is there a concern on your end as sweeps style has been, getting hammered from state to state lately? Like that's what's the move for you guys, like long term, if that continues?
Yeah, it's certainly something we knew getting into this, right? We pivoted from a DFS model last winter really to start building this product. But we come from DFS where, we lived through the pick'em wars where it was which state is going to ban prize picks and underdogs pick'em product. And we really spent a lot of time trying to be on the extremely cautious side of things and sort of let regulators take action. And I think our attitude now, after a couple years of that, is let's push the envelope and let's get in while it's hot. Now, long term, we do see sweepstakes as a means to an end of our ultimate goal, which is to be considered in the same breath as Polymarket and Kalshi. And I think I'd shout out some other companies like Novig and Profit who have done a great job leveraging the sweeps model to build successful businesses, and they have opportunities in front of them that go beyond the sweeps model. So I think there's a range of options we're considering. We feel very comfortable where we're at, knowing our future plans.
In recent days here, DraftKings has purchased Railbird, so they're they're wading into the prediction market space. A few weeks ago, Kalshi started offering parlays on a smaller scale. The product that you're offering, is there, I don't know if concern's the right word, but I'll use concern. Is there concern that like the big guns who are already in the space are going to see what you're doing and be like, hey, this is like, we should be doing the same thing, and just kind of like, pull the rug out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear that what we're doing, these companies do want to do. I don't think there's a waiting game to see how successful we are with it. I think the idea of offering parlays on predictions is a no-brainer. Now, there are some constraints to the CFTC model. I know it feels like they keep their hands in their pockets for just about everything. And, maybe by the time this comes out, there's more movement on some of the court cases or, no action that they've taken. But I really think when it comes down to a CFTC exchange offering a parlay product, you've got to remember who's on the other side of these bets. And when Kalshi is offering the ability to bet on anytime touchdowns or alternate spreads, we're not talking about a peer-to-peer market where you're betting Jimmy on the other side. You're betting Susquehanna. You're betting hedge funds. And so if the CFTC approves a process where you can submit a totally custom parlay and a market maker is going to take that action, we're no longer talking about prediction markets. We're talking about commoditized parlay assets. And that's something that, if approved, you've just paved the way for me to join the hunt. I think there'll be some time. I'd also add that CFTC models are obviously very hot right now, and there's no shortage of obvious reasons why, but there are some limitations that I think are really overlooked, and that really has to do with retention. A sports bettor who plays on DraftKings or FanDuel is very used to being provided subsidies, promotions, profit boosts, anything to get you to make your finger click the button they want you to click, right? And that's something that CFTC, I am very skeptical will ever approve the types of retention tools that you see out of sports books. Because if we have a financial institution, a derivatives exchange offering in-app currency, odds boosts, injury protections on player prop bets, we no longer live in a regulated world. That's just people doing whatever they want and having nobody, able to tell them no. So that's what I'm betting on, is that we'll be able to gamify the experience in a way that feels comfortable, that feels familiar, while the big guys are figuring out the regulatory methods to just offer the baseline product we do.
Right. I mean, looking at your site, your app, it's much different in that, like, it's not it's yes, no. Well, it's yes, no, but it's presented, will Trump be indicted plus 2,500, whatever, whatever the odds are. Once I place a parlay with you guys, there's no exit, correct?
Not at the moment. We are interested in that potential of sort of resale of tickets. I mean, you've seen success with that, like PropSwap and WagerWire have, businesses dedicated to that sort of system. And I'm a big fan of how Kalshi and Polymarket allow you to trade in and out at the market price. I mean, I think that's a dynamic that really impacts the way people think and the way they bet. So I'm very much interested in bringing that online. There's a lot of stuff we have in the works. That's one of them.
What's allowing you as a company to be able to make all these pivots through the short time that you've been doing this?
I mean, I think it just comes down to, agility. We have a team of 4 full-time. We have some engineers and some interns that add to that. But really, this is an operation that me and my best friend from college started, and we build all the tech in-house. We do all of our own marketing. It's something that we have intentionally kept as a lean unit. And it does feel like we've pivoted a lot. But for the first 4 years, we were finding our footing on DFS. And that was once we had kissed the dream goodbye of bet on anything, in the back of my mind, I still had it. But to our investors, it was, no, we're going to build a business that we can execute on, not one that just lives in the white paper, right? So for years, that was what we did. But for us now, this really feels like our final form setting in. And we feel like our patience and our ability to stay alive, which is half the battle in startups really, is staying alive. And we feel like that set us up well to be a winner now in 2025 and beyond.
I was joking earlier about your age, but you are 27. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, one thing that I'm kind of curious about, and I think is being missed by the industry at large, is how your generation and the generation a step behind you sees what we call gambling. I think it's seen much differently. And so I don't want to prompt you, but I'm curious what your take on that is. That's the question. I'll leave it there, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
It's a good question. And I have a funny sort of anecdote around, why I see things the way I do. When I was freshman in high school, my family moved over from North Carolina to London, England. And so I was all of a sudden immersed in 2014 in this sports betting and just betting in general sort of ecosystem that was mature, that was live. And, all my friends, we'd go to the pub and we would take our parents' IDs and make accounts on the sports books and sit there with our computers and drink and bet. And that was my, junior and senior year of high school. So I come from a little bit of I knew when the US was able to move on this industry that it would just be a massive opportunity. Now, that's not the hottest take of all time. That's just kind of obvious. So to me, when I was 16, 17, that was all I was thinking about was, okay, what happens next? But to answer your question more directly, I think for me, I see with the types of folks we work with, the types of users we have, a lot of people, they're used to the idea of betting on things. It's just not that taboo. And, obviously there's a need for protections and making sure people of a certain age are not playing. But generally speaking, I don't think there's this taboo where people feel like it's so dangerous. Like I think many people before this generation felt. And I think really when COVID hit and, you're watching Dave Portnoy do Davey Day Trader all day and trading Robinhood stocks and in some cases trading Robinhood's stock, it was very much enlightening for folks. It's like, okay, the world's one big casino. I'm going to buy some chips.
That's basically the way I see it. I feel like the whole generation and younger is used to growing up in a real gamified atmosphere. It's so funny to me. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I noticed it just a couple of years ago. My daughter wanted to buy these Muppet Lego figures, and you can only buy them in the mystery packs, And so you didn't know what you were going to get. And every time we'd go to the store, she'd want to buy another one because she wanted Miss Piggy or whatever. And I'm like, this is nothing but gambling. And of course, I go online on eBay. I'm like, I'll just buy her the Miss Piggy. Well, it's going for $40, 5x the price of it. And I'm like, this is just a whole generation being brought up to gamble, right? Which, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm not going to say. But it almost feels as if putting a $5 parlay down is a lot safer than messing around with, meme stock trading, right? And so I almost feel that the entire way that we look at, just by calling it sports betting, I think that even is going to change what we even call it as we move towards the future.
Prediction has a nice generalist term to it that can be used, advantageously. But I think generally speaking, I agree. And yeah, crypto, I mentioned the day trading, but crypto even more so impacted my generation. Now, look, is everyone, if you got 100 kids age 16, how many of them are into crypto? Probably, not that more than 5 to 10, right? It's not mainstream, but it is something that once you immerse yourself in that world, you kind of realize, as I said, the world's a casino and people look for ways to profit from that. I've had friends make a lot of money buying meme coins or legitimate coins, early. And I think there is this kind of idea of if you've got the capital to deploy, you have a couple different ways you could try to, make a lot out of a little. That's the gambler mindset. And you see that when you buy penny stocks. You see that when you buy parlays.
So you were saying earlier, you grew up in North Carolina, you moved to London for high school. Is that correct?
Yeah, I moved around a lot. My dad was government, so every 5 years, pretty much, we would ship out, and London was my favorite stop.
At that stage of your life, you had been in North Carolina for a few years. I assume you had made some friends and got comfortable there. You're turning 14. And I say this as a parent of an 11-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old. If I told them that we were up and moving to London, I think they would, I'd go to sleep and they'd pack a bag and leave and move it somewhere in town without me. What's that like moving at that age? And I mean, you ended up loving it, but was there there must have been a lot of fear and loathing going on?
Absolutely. No, it was difficult to get my head around. I had only been in Charlotte from 3rd grade to 9th grade. So I had already kind of had that sort of transplant lifestyle. But yeah, I had made some really good friends and done a lot of my core up, growing up there. I think the worst part was my dad told us before freshman year and we moved after freshman year. So I was like, oh, this whole year's a wash. I don't got to make any friends or do anything. But no, I think it was really interesting. When you're stationed there, the government pays for things like schooling and housing. So it was a really interesting experience because we were living above our means in the middle of in my opinion, the greatest city on earth. And I was going to a school called the American School in London, a private school that was very different from my, 8,000 person public school in Charlotte. And, my friends were, their parents were oil barons and Barclays executives instead of normal people. And so it was very odd. I think the biggest thing was just, it was a forcing function of me to grow up quicker and sort of determine like, what do I want to do and how do I want to do it? Because I only had a couple years there before I would ship off to college. And so I do think it was very influential in my ability to just kind of adapt. I think that's the one thing that I really gained from that is, every time you restart, you kind of rebuild. And, I had to do the same in college. So I think that helps you mentioned, pivot quickly or just sort of be persistent. It comes from a fact that, stability has never been my bread and butter. I'll get there one day, but right now I'll trade the stability for the volatility of the startup game.
You had said earlier that you didn't want a suit and tie sitting in a cubicle job. And then you just mentioned how, you were going to school with, Barclays kids, executives and stuff. Is there a Venn diagram there that you saw how the other half lived and you're like, man, I want a piece of that. I don't want to be, 9-to-5 guy.
Honestly, I thought it was very cool what all my new friends, folks were doing. I had never been around that level of like success, and you can be a successful person in many different ways. But from that, like kind of financial lens of we go to the pub, my friends, a lot of times they'd buy the rounds and you could see the generosity kind of come out. So I actually didn't feel averse to that. I think it was more so I was never good at school. It never kept my interest for very long. I think there were some topics that really appealed to me, but I really liked the idea of kind of crafting my own schedule and, proving people that I could, create value without being told how.
I got to punch back here. People say, maybe greatest city in the world. You hear New York, you hear Paris. You don't hear London very often. What makes you say it? What did it do to you?
I think the fact that I didn't have to learn a new language might contribute to my bias there. But no, I think from the sports to the history to just the way of life. I mean, British people are some of my favorite people. They just, it feels like they know what's important. And I feel like that was really interesting to me. And I got to have all these experiences that I would have never had otherwise with not just in London, but it's not far from, many European and other cities. And so my family took the opportunity to travel and, I got to get to, like 25 countries by the time we moved back, something really crazy. So I think that's where my bias comes from. I also just think it's, New York's the center of the world if you're American, but I feel like London or Dubai is the center of the world for everyone else.
I'm not, I don't want you to piss on the city here, but like, if I giving you the choice to operate out of London or operate out of New York, what are you choosing?
It's funny because when you work in sports, you don't, in high school, I would stay up till 2 a.m. for Monday Night Football to start. And that got old, So I think for that reason, I would probably have to say New York, but I think retire in London.
There you go. When you're out on the town, and I don't know if you have a girlfriend, you're married or something, but when you're meeting people, and, you eventually get to what do you do for a living? How do you explain this to the gambler, to the the person not in the industry who probably looks at you with a pretty vacant look when you start talking about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, for the last couple years, it's been, do you play fantasy football? We let you bet on it. And that was, a very easy to understand sort of model. But now, as much as Polymarket and Kalshi and prediction markets in general dominate, you and I's timeline on LinkedIn and others, it is still very new to a lot of folks. So I don't cite necessarily, oh yeah, it's a prediction market. People don't know what that is. And we're trying to change that, of course, but we're actually happy to let Kalshi and Polymarket spend some of their billions of dollars educating the user, and I think everyone will benefit from that. But no, now it's like, look, we have an app where you can bet on anything. Take it out. You like the Oscars, you like the Grammys, you like politics. You can bet on it, and I think that is particularly general enough to get people interested because it feels kind of customizable.
One thing that's surprising to me, and you kind of touched on it there, is Polymarket and Kalshi's billions of dollars. I feel like outside of they had that Super Bowl ad, Kalshi, that they talked about, but I feel like there's been a definite lack of an attempt to get people to understand this, a definite lack of advertising. It's not for lack of money. What do you chalk it up to, and what do you expect in the future? And I'm asking you to put yourself in the mind of a Kalshi CEO here.
Yeah, well, I would say I probably, whether it's my algorithm knowing that I'm into this stuff or, the people I follow, I'm inundated with paid marketing from them. But generally speaking, yeah, they're not doing the TV commercials as much. One thing that they've really invested in that you can see is on Twitter, gaining affiliates, right? And if you're a big Twitter user, there are some pages like NBA Central or NFL memes that have millions of followers, and what they've done is they've gotten them to be affiliates of their companies, and that's basically every tweet those pages make is an ad, and it's a very effective strategy for creating the what is this reaction. Half of advertising to me feels like a what is this. Our mantra is you can do this now. It's the same mantra we had for fantasy. Oh, you play fantasy football, you can bet on it, you can do this now. And we're just trying to bring that over to predictions. But I think you'll see a lot more paid spend from Polymarket once their US product launches. Really excited for that. And Kalshi, I think, is spending in a lot of ways that the benefits for them will come back, over the next, 5 to 10 months rather than like an immediate all out spend. But I think both of them are doing a pretty good job for such a large task of educating the users. And they have a whole crop of folks, trying to slow them down. So you may agree with them or not, but there's, a PR battle to their PR.
Well, I'm curious to see what happens. I mean, we all remember like DraftKings and FanDuel just inundating the airwaves, both with DFS and then again with the sports betting. And, it definitely, people got annoyed by it in the end, even if you were interested in it, like every time you turn on TV, it's a commercial. I am curious to see if Kalshi and Polymarket follow the same path. I almost feel like they will. I almost feel like they have to, but well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happened. So, you said you went to school at Syracuse. You were working for Barstool. Did you meet Portnoy, who I think is a genius in what he does?
No, I didn't meet him, but I got to pretend I was him a little bit because, so what we did was we started the Barstool Syracuse brand. So it's called Barstool Qs on all platforms. And at the time in 2016, the idea of a college account for, a branded college account was new. We were probably one of the first 10 or so. And now every single school, down to the smallest of schools has them. And it all runs basically on this internship creator program. And that was very new when we were there. So it was a lot of ask for forgiveness, not permission. And I had the local bars. I had to deal with them. We wouldn't post anything that implied, freshmen were at their bars and I drank for free. So, that was the type of deals I was able to cut. And it was fun. I mean, we would throw bar nights we would host parties. We would work with local frats to, throw events. And that was really fun for me to try to figure out what kind of damage could I do with a $1 billion brand name and a $0 budget. And that's basically how it was for all 4 years. And now the team that did that with me, co-founder of that, one of them, David Rosen, is my CTO at Verse, my co-founder and my best friend. And then the other one is actually, his name's Ben DiGiulio. He now runs the entire college affiliate program at Barstool. So we all grew up.
All right. So let's talk about Mr. Rosen. So did you guys, I don't know how it works anymore. Back when I was younger, you just showed up to school and here's your roommate, bango. Did you guys know each other before you went to school? Did you meet each other before you moved in, or was it just, welcome to Syracuse, here's your roommate?
Yeah, no, we kind of led parallel lives. In ninth grade, he had a girlfriend who happened to be one of my closest friends from childhood. in Charlotte. And so he would come visit and he would stay at my house, which was really just, cover for him to go hang out with her. So that was my relationship with him. We were buddies because, I liked him, but it was more so, I had a friend who knew him and kind of wingman, I guess. And so after freshman year, I went to London. He shipped off to boarding school. And when it was time for school, he was deciding between a couple places. And I took my friend's phone. I called him. I said, hey, let's be roommates at school. Let's do this together. And that was how we got started. So we go way back to when we were 14, and he's not sick of me yet. So
that's a long time. And thinking of my own history, best friends, I'm not sure that I would survive a business partnership with somebody that I liked and cared for outside of the dollars and cents. Has that been at all difficult to navigate, or has it just been smooth sailing?
I think we've just been a sort of a tandem since we roomed together all throughout college. We would go do hackathons at the library. We would, submit projects together. We were always kind of a co-founder relationship. He's very, very good at what he does technically. And it's always been he builds, I sell. That's the model. But I will say we do have a special friendship because we're the type, we get off of Slack at 10 p.m. and we're tired and we take a break and then we hop on the Xbox and we'll play together. So it's pretty durable, the friendship.
That's awesome. All right. So asking anybody this question is unfair because we are in an industry where I feel like things move in dog years, right? Things move fast. And, before you know it, yesterday's news is tomorrow's big deal. And yesterday's big deal is tomorrow's garbage. Where do you see yourself 5 years down the road?
I think we live in the first inning of prediction markets, and there's a lot of ways it could go, but I see us in the hunt. That's what I see, whether that's in the CFTC realm or otherwise. I think, our goal and what I would like to do is to be a leader in this space. And I told my investors, I'm like, yeah, you guys, it's been 4 years of DFS. I'm kind of burned out at DFS, but I'll work the next 30 years of my life in predictions. I'm a big politics junkie. Unfortunately, I'm a big news junkie in general. I love to know as soon as it hits the press what's going on. So for something like prediction markets where you can bet on anything and you can kind of get that edge from being a nerd about some of this stuff, I'm in it for the next 30. And in 5, I'd like us to, be considered in the top tier of platforms. And I'll look to Prize Picks. I have great respect for what they've done. I think that team is really an impressive and strong team. And obviously they just had their acquisition. So I think we have the opportunity to follow a parallel path to what they have done. And there's a lot of successful companies, but they just kind of stand out to me as, a model we're trying to follow. So I'd love to follow those footsteps and in 5 years be considered a top tier prediction operator.
All right, real quick before I let you go, NBA season has tipped off. And I know you're not a New Yorker by birth, but you got to choose now, Knicks or Nets?
No, my answer is worse. I am a diehard Charlotte Hornets fan.
There it is. All right. I think they're in town. The Nets are playing them tonight, I think, right?
Yep, the game's in Charlotte, unfortunately. But for 2011, the lockout season, when we went 7-59, I was at 2 of those wins. And I remember telling myself, I was like, it cannot get worse than this. And I was right. I just didn't realize it would never get better either. And that's kind of where we're at.
So let me take one wild guess. If you're sticking with the Hornets as your NBA team, I'm guessing you're sticking with the Panthers as your football team. And as a result, your favorite athlete of all time, based on your age, is got to be Cam Newton.
He's up there. I think he's definitely one of my favorites, him and Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield. So I was in Oklahoma, before Charlotte, I lived in Oklahoma. So I always had a sort of preference for the OU guys too. So, but yeah, no, it's a tough existence. And the last couple of years for the Panthers, nothing like the 2016 with Cam Newton. Nothing's going to top that unless we actually win a Super Bowl at some point, which I'm not expecting.
We'll put that in the 30-year plan as well. All right, Daniel, I really appreciate you taking some time this morning. Daniel Zimmerman, Reverse Gaming, good luck, and we'll see you in those prediction market streets, man.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.